Welcome to Let's Talk Spokane, where host Ryan McNeese seeks out and discusses the latest on a variety of hot local topics. Now, here's your host, Ryan McNeese.
Well, it's not Ryan McNeese. It's the better looking of the two owners, okay? Kent Adams here. And the reason I'm here is because of my guest today. For those of you who have lived in Spokane for half a century, know Mike Fitzsimmons. Mike has been on the air 45 of those 50 years.
That's right.
I've known you for 41 and a half years. I'm still getting counseling because of it.
Yes, I'm glad that you're progressing too. That's nice.
No, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today. And you've accomplished so much. You've helped our community through Ice Storm and Mount St. Helens and so many big events. You've irritated a lot of people.
Oh, that I have.
Yeah, and you've been paid for that. So
yes,
how do you get that kind of a gig? And well, anyway, I'm glad to have you, and I've been bugging you for, what, a year and a half or two, and you're finally here. What do you think of what we're doing?
I think it's terrific. I mean, this is the future of broadcasting, both audio and video broadcasting. This is the future of it. Kent, you're on the ground floor. You're building something that is...
We are on the first floor, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Figuratively speaking, I'm talking about.
I know.
You are on the ground floor of what is the new wave of this industry.
Right.
And because that's the case, you're going to be one of the pioneers.
Yeah, actually, one of our interns a year ago, his first assignment, he said, what do you want me to do? He was 17 at the time. And I said, I want you, because you're young and you know how to work the internet, I want you to go online and find out what others are doing like us, because I want to borrow good ideas.
I'll bet you didn't find much.
He found nothing except all sports or all whatever,
right, sure.
but nothing in the community.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And the fact is, for local TV and radio these days, to do this isn't in the cards. And you're a good example of that and what happened to you recently. You left KXLY, but you actually didn't. Why did you leave?
I didn't leave. They left me. I mean, that was their decision to go a different direction.
Right.
And I was advised of it in mid-December, and it took place at the end of December, and that's all there is to say about it. This was not my choice.
Right. But it's typical of local radio, except maybe in the very big markets, because there's a cost to having somebody on, to having a producer and run the board and everything else, versus taking that satellite feed in.
Exactly.
And that's what they replaced you with.
This is a business decision that was made.
Well,
I have no difficulty with it. It was a business decision.
Yeah, welcome to the 21st century.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted to go a certain direction. They had certain objectives to meet. And I didn't fit into that future. So that's the way it is. I understand that. I've been around long enough to know
Yeah,
these
you
things.
have. And I say that laughing because you're, like 2 years behind me, aren't you? You're turning 70 this June, and I turned 72.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
So why'd you remind me of that?
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Before we go any further, I've got a couple of folks. I mean, we've been inundated with folks who when I first started out this week said, guess who's coming? It's like, guess who's coming to dinner? And here you are. And a couple of them mentioned you. They mentioned a couple of other folks and so forth. And by the responses we've gotten, which were all positive, was you've been missed. And have you missed talking with the community?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You don't do something for 45 years and then not do it and not feel like something's missing. You can't. You can't do it. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. But what is your main job today, other than being a husband to Helen and a father to 3 kids and grandkids and all of that? Don't you love being a grandparent?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the best thing in life.
I just wish they were closer. I mean, they're quite a distance away, all of them.
Well, some of us kept most of them close, and some of them sent them away. So
no, we didn't send them away. That was a choice. But I wish they were closer. We could see them more often. But to a certain extent, there's a silver lining in this, because I have more freedom to go there and see them now, and I'm going to take them up on it.
But you have a daytime job. What is it?
I teach at Gonzaga University in the Integrated Media Department, half for 17 years now.
Right.
And
gosh, has it been that long?
It has.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I teach kids to
kids. Yeah.
They're kids. I mean,
they are to us. They are
old enough to be their grandfather twice removed. You know.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's what I do. I teach media law. I'll be teaching a lot in the television program here in the next year.
Yeah, because of Dan Garrity retiring from Gonzaga. Right.
He's going to be sorely missed.
Yes.
But the fact that he's leaving means that I'll be a caretaker. I'm not the one to take it to the next level. I've too far into the
well,
toward
you're
the
a
sunset
few
of my
years
career.
away from actually retiring, probably.
But the point is that the day will come when they're going to need somebody that's going to be able to move them ahead, and that's not going to be me.
Right.
And we all understand that. That didn't require any real conversation.
Right. Hey, speaking of folks who have reached out to me, and one I saw yesterday because I had lunch with Rob Harris, one of the morning reporters at CREM, and
Sure.
he remembers good times. And I remember when I reached out to you because he might have been at one point was thinking about being an intern.
Yep.
How is he? And your response was he's a good writer.
Great writer and a top-notch kid, and I call him a kid.
I know,
he's a young man, but top-notch, and I love to see his work.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it's good to have him back in Spokane.
It is. We taught him well, and he's
Yeah.
added to that, which is the whole idea.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing just great.
Yeah. Now, hopefully he's watching because I told him I might embarrass him. I'm not going to embarrass him. No. The other is somebody when I reached out to you and we were doing just radio, and that's Andy Cook. You
Sure.
remember Andy?
So I taught him also.
Yeah.
Great guy, a great technician.
Yes.
Got a real sound mind. Family man, neat guy all the way.
Just had
around.
the second baby, second girl.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a very nice letter from you after he had helped us for 6 months or longer. And, of course, we gave him a time to replace Tom MacArthur and myself to actually do a live broadcast.
Right.
In those days, we did it live at the Scratch Restaurant, which was, at that time, very unique. No one else was doing local live radio outside the studio, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And you sent a letter saying that he got one of the best hands-on experiences with
Sure.
Tom MacArthur and I to be able to develop something from scratch.
There's absolutely no substitute for hands-on.
Right.
And that's the effort we undertake. Our curriculum is designed to give our students hands-on and the ability to do rather than watch somebody else do. And and to get thrown in the pool. I mean, that's, you teach the babies how to swim by tossing them in and see if they know they can keep their head up if they can. You don't have to teach them very much. If they can't, you got to rescue them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Basically.
Well, and then there's a guy who's built a very small little company in town. Most people don't know about it. Most people don't follow or watch Z Nation. But Rich Cowan said to say hi to you this morning with North by Northwest, and he was excited that you were going to be on, and hopefully he's watching too.
And there's a guy who followed his dream and brought it to a terrific level, and has made such contributions.
About 200 people on average are employed pretty much full-time in this town, or at least make a full-time wage because of what Rich has done.
That's right.
That's right. And, how many would have said, no, don't even try that?
No, we tell our students also, Kent, that, look, there is broadcast television, broadcast radio, and all that sort of thing. But there's also a much larger industry out there that uses the same kind of technologies, the same kind of bells and whistles and all the rest, but is not broadcast, and that's...
And you told me over lunch a couple of weeks ago, you asked your students about who's the big producer of video in Seattle.
Yeah, in Seattle, who's the largest production facility.
And what were the students'
answers? Would it be KING or KOM or KIRO television? They thought, one of those. Oh, no, it's the Boeing company.
Yeah.
It's, by far and away.
And how many people would, on average, think about that?
They don't think about it, but that's only one.
Yeah.
Microsoft, is another,
many of the tech firms are doing their own things.
Tech firms and manufacturing companies, what have you, they're doing their own work. So the opportunities are just abound.
Yeah.
And it's a much bigger industry than television and radio stations alone would suggest.
Yeah. I find it interesting that to have a half-hour, roughly, conversation that we do, most of your commercial stations, either TV or radio, aren't going to spend the time or can't afford to do it, to have a decent host, and we've got great hosts here and so forth. Most of our hosts are not seasoned radio or TV people, but they know the industry they're talking about.
Sure.
Martha Lou, that goes back, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does,
Sulani Madsen,
Sure.
in terms of better health. That's an area she's on a board. She's on this and on that, and she reaches out. We get the folks from the
She's America's busiest woman.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know how she does it.
Yeah,
she is into all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And yet she seems to have time to do a lot for a lot of folks. I mean, she's an amazing person.
Yeah, and in fact, she's going to be heading up all of our Meet the Candidates series this year and so forth, and we're really pleased to have her. I've got and I don't usually come prepared with a list.
That's a lot of notes there, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
For you, that's a lot of notes.
It is, because I really do work on the conversation and try to go in without a preset of things. But I had to organize my mind a little bit, as hard as that is, because there's so many things to talk about. I mean, I remember you're talking me into, and God, you worked on it for like 6 months to get away from radio, where you spin the records, to talk radio, and I didn't want to do that.
But you always, I mean, you always were a good conversationalist, and conversation is what it's about. That's how you build audiences in talk radio, and I knew that. I think you knew that, but you kind of wanted to go a different direction. I tried to talk you out of that.
I just wanted to play the music really loud in the
It's because you couldn't play it really loud anyplace else. Your wife would tell you to knock that off, will you?
Exactly. Hey, by the way, I got to ask this question, and those who have been in the broadcast industry will know why I ask this. Have you seen a cart machine in the last decade or two?
In a museum.
In a museum, okay. Yeah. I mean, how things have changed. Of course, the joke was that those are a recycled system from the 8-track and put them in radio and TV stations.
Sell them.
Yeah. But
basically the same concept.
My first question really is, of all the things that you have done, and we'll talk about some of those in specifics here in a minute, but what is the one thing that you remember most in terms of either a guest or a topic or whatever over the last 45 years?
Oh my, that's a broad question.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's one thing, and just a single standout thing. I thought the power of talk radio was well established by certain events where we needed to talk. One of the things when you tune in to listen to, you don't need to hear all that.
Right.
But when you're scared to death and you're worried about this or that, or whether your turkeys and chickens are going to suffocate to death because of volcanic ash or whatever the case, you now need to do that.
Yes.
And so the time we spent on the air with Mount St. Helens, and later on during the ice storm in 1996, we had a need to talk to each other, both for informational purposes, but also just to calm ourselves down and know that we can get through this. I mean, this is
and honestly, in those days we did not have the social media that we have today.
Sure.
So.
And I don't know that necessarily really replaces that.
Well,
There's a big difference between talking to somebody and texting to somebody.
But
as you know, I don't like to text to you.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the joke is that you and my wife have the last two flip phones in Spokane.
No, I have two of my own. She has the third.
Oh, okay. And the joke is, folks, I sent you a text, 6 months ago on something, and I get a note back, I don't get all of your message. Well, I thought I was pretty clear. No, Kent, I don't get all of your message. I only get 140 characters. That's what you meant.
Well, that's a technology limitation. But at the same time, this is a situation where I don't know how many screens I have to look at every day. I can't even remember my passwords. I have to carry them around with me now.
Yes.
And I have so many different things that I have to do. When it comes to a telephone, I want to make calls, take calls, and that's it. Okay? I don't want anything more. So the idea of carrying all that stuff with me so that I can access it, I really don't want that.
Well, my producer is giving me the 30-second sign about 20 seconds ago that we're going to go to a commercial break, so we're going to do that. We'll come back with Mike Fitzsimmons after this message. Stay tuned.
I'm Mike Marzetta from Mind's Eye. One of my life's goals is to never grow up, never have to grow up. What could be worse? My wife, Christy, and I had kind of two fundamental values that kind of led to Mind's Eye's creation. We wanted to make the difference in the lives of kids, and we wanted to have fun doing it. Mind's Eye Robotics is a high-quality, hands-on STEM education experience. We try to give the teacher a nice high-tech set of tools. We teach the teachers how to implement the curriculum in the lab, and 90% of it is them building, programming, formatting, designing, inventing. We want Mine's ought to be cooler than Xbox. We want the kids to go there and come home from school every day and go, wow, I did the coolest thing today, and not necessarily know that they've learned all this stuff. Kids are very passionate about it. You can see that they're having fun, they're excited, they're energetic, they're in the zone. I hear a lot of it. How do I get my kids to do homework? Well, you make it fun, and they come in before class starts, and they stay late, and they're not thinking the extra credit. They're thinking, I'm having too much fun, and I can't put this dang project down. It's college level stuff that they're learning. Change and learning are synonymous, and if you don't change, you get left behind. You got new companies emerging using new technologies and have a high demand for high skilled labor. They're good paying jobs. It'd be great to just hire some local folk to fill those. I think that we've got that kind of potential here in Spokane. We're graduating some great kids. When STCU supports learning, they're supporting our future. So many other organizations out there are so bottom line profit focused. I think they lose focus on what's important. I see STCU helping the greater community outside of it to get better, to learn, to grow, and to progress. We're here to do good. We're here to help the greater good. We're very proud to be able to partner with STCU to that end. I think what's a better place to help the greater good than with helping kids? I'm Mike Marzetta, and STCU is here for good.
Hi, this is Kurt. Welcome back to Spokane Talks, and it's Let's Talk Spokane. I'm sitting in for Ryan McNeese. We had to have someone really handsome to serve as host this day. I'm going to get an email later from him, I'm sure. You know Ryan, so yeah. Bad news is he's an attorney, so it'll probably be a legal notice, but anyway.
Be pretty stern.
Mike Fitzsimmons, my guest. Everything going okay?
Yeah.
Are you having fun at Gonzaga?
Oh,
because you love the teaching part,
absolutely.
Don't you?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I mean, it's if you had told me 25, 30 years ago that I'd probably end my career as a professor at a university, I'd have told you you're crazy. But but it has.
Well, you told me that often, but it wasn't for that reason.
Well, I did for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And by the way, you still are. But that has been just a wonderful experience for me. I've just absolutely loved it.
What's the challenge of teaching young people? And I say young, they are to us. They think they're old and mature and seasoned, but you know, a 19 or 20-year-old is still pretty darn young. Why do you like doing that? Where's that challenge? What excitement do you get?
You know, it's kind of like when the light bulb goes on and you know it goes on.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. You know, and when that happens, and you hope to have several of those episodes every semester.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. You realize, I got through with it. They actually understand. More often than not, the feedback you get is not in their ability to take a test and tell you what they know, but how to discuss, ask questions, do those sorts of things. Class participation is very important in my classes because students they don't know about this when we start.
Yeah.
So if they don't participate and ask about things, then you assume, perhaps wrongly, that they're getting it all, and that's not necessarily
well, and you
the
could be
case.
Teaching things that they didn't even know about in terms of they weren't even born.
That's part of the challenge right there is for example,
that history.
It's almost to the point now where you cannot use the events of 9/11 as a illustration because they have no personal remembrance of them. They were little.
Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Because you and I remember that we remember Mount St. Helens and all of those things that happened and gosh, crazy times. Yeah. You have one of the things that you did for a while was hosted a radio program with Mike Furman.
Mark Furman.
I say Mike. And those were interesting times because we had a sheriff at the time that was not really wanting to communicate well. Is that a nice way of saying it?
Yeah, that's one of the ways of saying it. Yeah. We've since buried the hatchet. All of us have. But at that time, look, we had a serial killer case.
Yes.
Robert Yates case, which of course is pretty well known to folks who've lived here for any length of time, in the late 1990s.
Yeah.
And
again, young people won't know what you're talking about.
They don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. No, they don't know who the South Hill killer, rapist was. They don't. Those things are not. They're just not. They don't know those things. And that's part of what's necessary. Is you have to re-educate. When when you're talking to people, when you're expecting
because
to
as you're
exchange-
talking about it and giving examples, they have no context.
The last you want to do is have them look at you with what are you talking about?
Yeah, but that's kind of fun to do too.
Well, sometimes. but the point being that Mark came on. I had established a Thursday segment on my program called All About Crime. We were talking about crime.
Right.
We'd bring in the sheriff, police chief, all those sorts of people we talk about. Well, at that same time, about 2 years into that particular sequence of Thursday programmings with Mark, we had the serial killer case.
Yeah.
We had 13 women, all of them prostitutes in this community who were, as he put it, stacking up like cordwood, these bodies. And it overwhelmed the local law enforcement people. They may have a different view of that even now looking back, but the reality of it is it overwhelmed them.
Yeah.
Mark would have 20 to 25 cases on his desk every day in robbery homicide in LAPD, and they might not see that many cases in an entire career.
Yeah.
And so this was part of the deal, right? And we would bring on guests like John Douglas, who established the FBI's profiling at Quantico, Virginia. Ann Rule, the now departed writer, who told the story of Ted Bundy, all these people, and we brought on law enforcement officials. What should our people be doing? How should they be interacting with law enforcement, interacting with the community as the eyes and ears and such?
Right.
And the police and the sheriff resented it. The task force screwed up a lot of different things. They'll never admit to that, but they did.
Right.
Mark wrote a book about it, Murder in Spokane. It tells the story about how we reported about their work.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't accept things that people would call imperfectly valid clues because it came from us. I mean, these kinds of things were just ridiculous. And there were some hard feelings, and they tended to badmouth Mark Furman as being a felon and all that. He's not a felon. He doesn't have a felony record. He did not lie under oath about a material fact in a trial, which is what perjury is. He didn't do any of that. But the public relations mentions of Mark Furman had to do with that, and they milked that.
Right.
The thing that I remember the most amazing was when two cops showed up to arrest both of us. Because we were supposedly obstructing justice. Yeah. Right? And so I said, okay, go ahead and do it.
Where are the pictures?
However, we'll be broadcasting from the jail, it was just a gesture to try to get us off the case because they were embarrassed by the things we were uncovering because we caught them, literally with the errors that they were making, and they didn't like having that sort of thing exposed.
Yeah. So
and they made some serious errors.
So much for transparency. Yeah. I remember asking Mark Sturck because he referred a lot to his cops group or his board that he had, and he would not give me a list. He said it's confidential, which in fact is not true because it's a nonprofit organization. So I don't have a lot of respect for Mark.
Well, whether you do, you don't. The bottom line is that when Mark was the sheriff of Spokane County, he was, in my view, a little over his head, and as a result, he was very cautious and did not, in many respects, do the kind of things that he probably could have and should have without difficulty.
I'm going to tell our audience that if you're watching Facebook and you have a question for Mike, type in a question and I'll read it to you, and I might censor a few in case we get some of those folks out there. But feel free to ask a question. Mike, you and I have sat on election night. I probably have sat with you maybe 3 or 4 of the 10 that you have done.
10 presidential elections.
Presidential elections. Do you remember the one? We always, when I was at Water Power in those days, you and I would always have lunch that day because I was going to show up later
in the day and spend half the night.
Yeah. Right. Yes, because we wouldn't get results until 2 in the morning.
Well, they didn't just count the first few in the door and then say goodbye. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We finished the election.
And I remember you and I looking at what was going on nationally, and I don't remember who was on the air at the time doing news, but you walked in during a commercial break and said, Kent and I are taking over after this commercial break. Finish it up. Because 5 o'clock our time, we weren't going to start till like 7 or 6 or something.
It was done.
Because we were trying to do local, basically. Right. And it went crazy. And we've had some fun doing that. Crazy times, crazy elections. I think things today are a little easier in that you get the numbers at a more decent hour. I remember getting home at 2 and 3 in the morning from those.
Well, but the election's unsettled at that point. Sometimes only half the votes or less than half the votes have been counted. You don't even know how it came out in some cases.
Yeah, crazy times. Crazy. But what were some of your fun experiences? 10 presidential presidential elections. That's quite a few.
Yeah. Well, of course, doing talk radio, you talk a lot about the things that are going to determine the outcome of a vote.
Right.
I remember on the 18th of September of 2016, I predicted that Donald Trump would win the election, and I gave the electoral count. I was off by 6 electoral votes.
Oh, you missed it so far.
I missed Nevada. I didn't think Nevada was not going to go Republican, but I got all the rest. And people would call up and say, "You're out of your freaking mind. You're out of your, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And then, of course, the phone didn't ring on election night, and anybody to try to scold me for being right.
Yeah. What do you think? Why were the predictions in the polls so far off?
I think the process by which the news media reports these days is seriously suspect.
Okay.
I am one who delves into each poll every time.
Yeah.
I tear them apart. I see who were the folks that were asked questions, what were the questions that were asked. Right, and how were the the Republicans, the Democrats, the Independents skewed? What ages were they? Were they just adults, 18 plus? Were they voters, registered voters? Were they registered voters who actually cast ballots, like voters who cast a ballot the last 4 out of 5 elections?
Right.
Because that makes a difference in terms of, everybody has an opinion. And I've discovered after 45 years in talk radio, you don't have to have any brains to have an opinion. All you have to have is a mouth that works.
I won't go and respond to that.
Well, that's true. You don't have to. I mean, there's an awful lot of folks who think they know exactly what's going on who haven't got a clue.
Well, they hear things, therefore they just repeat.
But they hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And they disregard everything else. And if you bring them up, well, this is a fact, they'll tell you, well, that's not a fact. That's just your, excuse me, but I can prove that. I don't want to talk.
Don't confuse me with facts.
Don't confuse me with facts.
Speaking of folks, I want to come back and talk about something in a second, but I've got a question. And the question is, I have to put my reading glasses on, folks. Yes, I do.
Yes.
What's the environment like being around talk radio? Relaxed? Hectic? You've had 45 years of doing that.
Well, it can be hectic. It depends on what's going on on any given day or any given hour, for that matter. I mean, when I started 45 years ago, the news cycle was 24 hours.
Yeah.
Today, the news cycle is last 10 seconds, right?
Yeah,
Whatever has happened, anything can happen. Yeah. And so that has increased the intensity and the amount of research that's necessary to do to be able to stay up with events that are occurring. That certainly has been a part of it. But when you get used to it and get into it, it's like anything else. You master the process to some degree. And it's really not all that much of a problem.
People have asked me, why don't you still do talk radio and do some of the political stuff? And once in a while, I get into the political stuff on my show. One of the things that we have told all of our hosts is they can invite who they want and talk about what they want.
Sure.
Okay? And so it's not all Kent's ideas.
No.
And we've got good people who have good contacts and so forth. But once in a while I'll mention something, but it's crazy out there. I mean, just some of the things that are being thrown out, and you make any kind of comment, all of a sudden you're a racist or you're not. And that becomes,
unfortunately, what has happened is
Facebook,
that when your argument fails, when your facts are not there, sling mud, call them names, do whatever you want to, and unfortunately, I'm a conservative / libertarian. I don't even consider myself so much to be a Republican anymore.
Yeah, I consider myself a conservative.
But that being the case, I do see that the liberal side tends to get to the mud quick because they don't have very much to offer, and that's a sad reality. And the good news is a lot more people are beginning to discover that's what the Trump election was all about.
I want to talk about Texas, but I do notice that one of your students from before, Andy Cook, is watching us. So
hello, Andy.
I don't know if he heard you talk about him earlier.
Congratulations on your second child, Andy.
Yeah. Apparently he's been home often. But anyway, good kid. He's probably 30-something, 33, 34. I know.
He's a fine young man.
I know. We need to talk to him, though. He still has some liberal thoughts here and there. But we'll work on it.
Sorry. I might add, though, I had a couple of what I would consider to be prominent liberal thinkers on my program for many years. Bob Glatzer, the late Bob Glatzer, had wonderful conversations with him.
Yes.
And this is, we probably politically did not agree on almost anything.
Yeah.
And yet we went out to dinner on Friday nights. He and Marianne and my wife Ellen and I, and we loved to be together. And then later on, after we lost Bob, I had Jerry Hughes.
Yes.
Who was a teacher, of course, in the Spokane district, a high school teacher.
North Central, I think, for a number of years.
Yeah, and he then later on was at Gonzaga.
Okay.
And And Jerry and I don't agree on a whole lot of things politically either, but we had wonderful debates, respectful debates, thoughtful debates. I learned more from a thoughtful liberal than I do from an enthusiastic conservative. I always have.
Yeah.
And I would love to have more of that, except that they have deteriorated to the point where they don't really have the confidence in their convictions they used to have.
By the way, Andy says, thanks, Mike. He's at home today because he had a major leak in the basement and they're having to tear everything out. So he's babysitting contractors. That was his earlier.
Been there, done that, Andy.
Yeah, haven't we
Been
all?
There, done that.
Yeah, and I'm so happy it's Andy and not us. There was this big buildup to Tuesday in Texas that the state was going to go blue, or so much bluer than it's ever been. It didn't. Republicans, more of them came out to the polls, higher percentage than before.
More Democrats came out too, to be fair.
Yes, but a lot more Republicans did.
Well, they thought that this was going to be a bellwether that was going to set the tone.
Yeah, you're not hearing much from the blue side, are you, right now?
No, you're not. And but the problem with it is that their biggest problem is they believe their PR releases.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that there isn't any basis for those.
Right.
I mean, they wanted to upset Ted Cruz in Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. The idea was this was going to be the end of Ted Cruz.
Right.
He went over double the amount of count as the Democrat did, and the odds are that the Democrat's going to get crushed in the general. So I mean, there's when you are the opposing party, you talk big about how you're going to win the next game.
Yeah.
All right, and that's what BYU said just before they played us the other night. And guess what happened?
Why, was there a game?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, okay. And I understand we let the ladies play basketball these days too. What's next? Vote? They can vote?
We have a fabulous women's basketball team in Gonzaga headed to the NC2A, and and the winners of the WCC.
Women's and men's basketball has not hurt GU, has it?
No.
What's happened with applications and students and everything? It's only helped, right?
Oh yeah, the student body, the size of the student body has grown constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having growing pains. There's no question about that. It's good kind of growing pains, but it's growing pains.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a top 10 and come that close to beating Carolina for the national championship a year ago.
Oh, we won.
Folks are going to notice you, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I want to talk. We're just about at the end of the program, but one of the things that you've done for 40 years or 30 years is hydroplanes.
Actually longer, 47 years.
47 years, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying not to embarrass how ancient
it's
you
all right.
are. Okay.
It's okay. I'm still 2 years younger than you. So.
Yeah, you quit that a couple of years ago. In fact, I think I was over there just the year or two before. Yeah. And what got you interested? Because I remember you telling me, standing on a dock there, pointing up to where you lived and everything.
Yeah, well, on Lake Washington.
Yes.
In Seattle, when we bought a house in 1956 overlooking basically the hydroplane course on Lake Washington. That time the trees were not as tall as they are today, and so you could see out over them and see the boats and see the water.
Yeah,
we
weren't as gray either. But
no, right outside my bedroom window was the start and finish line for the Seattle Seafair and Gold Cup races, and and of course television at that time in Seattle, all three of the network affiliates used to cover the hydroplane race 24/7, literally wall to wall, and compete with each other.
Yes,
that was it. If you, in the week of Seafair in August, if you watched television, you watched hydroplanes.
Yes.
It was as simple as that, no matter what channel you were on.
Right.
So, beginning in 1971, I hosted and did play-by-play for every Seattle Seafair hydroplane race on television.
Yeah.
First with KING TV and later with KIRO television.
Right.
Until 2013.
Yeah.
So it was a long ride.
And they're not doing that as much anymore.
They didn't do the broadcast. Nobody did a live broadcast of the race this year at all.
Yeah.
The first time. Yeah. And that's because the sport, unfortunately, has diminished to the degree that it does not lend itself to live television.
Well, I've got to read this one. Cole Lillis. Do you know Cole?
Huh?
Okay. And she says, what's the craziest, I should censor this. What's the craziest Kent memory from when you used to work together? One that you could repeat on air.
Craziest Kent memory?
Yeah.
God. I mean, asking about the craziest Kent memory is like asking how long were you in the asylum, because there were daily memories. But no, I'm just kidding.
Do you remember going to dinner up at the Spokane house and what we did to you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and you've threatened to get back to me.
But you weren't the only one that did stuff like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. What it was is
craziest memory.
We had someone come in with a tutu to sing to you and your wife.
When
my wife,
Western Onion was here.
Yeah,
remember that outfit?
Yeah. Oh yes, I do.
Yeah, the guy with the beard and curly hair and
Yeah, I had a gal at work in my office that really was really creative, and I said, "Here's what I want to do," and she jumped at the opportunity to create a poem that he could sing. Yeah.
And he gave me a keychain with it to me on the tutu. I still have that.
Oh, I'm sorry for you.
It's in a drawer with other memories, but I have it.
The bottom drawer. Yeah. But we had some good times. We did.
We did a variety of things. You're doing this here. We did a variety of things in the old KSPO days.
Yes.
I mean, we had car talk and money talk and tradio on the air and a whole bunch of different things that we engineered for people to do. I mean, this was long before the social media or anything like that. We had radio classified ads. People would call up on a Saturday afternoon, and we hosted a huge variety of shows. Garden, we brought the late Scott Creech into radio to do his plant farm program, and these things arose from a period of time when really the only medium that you could do that was radio.
Right. I remember getting on either the first or second slowest elevator in town to come up and see you at what is now the James S. Black
Columbia building,
the Columbia building, and sitting there on a Sunday with you, matter of fact, with the window open, and a few cars on the street going by.
Funny story about that one summer night I'm doing the broadcast, right? This was dialogue from
I know where you're going.
6 to midnight I used to do it, the old show that was actually started by Rick Van years earlier, but anyway, that was the first talk radio that I did in Spokane. It was 1974. And anyway, it was a hot night, and we didn't have air conditioning in that building, and so I had the window open. You could hear the city sounds and everything. All of a sudden, there's fire engines and sirens and everything. All of a sudden, there's this click against the window, and I look there. There's a ladder there. The guy pops up, and it's a guy in full regalia. Ridpath, he says, and I said, no, cross the street.
It's good that he didn't point the hose at you.
Or just open fire.
Now, one last thing. And we're going a little long just because we like to talk a lot. Do you remember the one I first met you when I was at the Chamber, which is literally when I first worked, was across the street from where we are now.
And don't you miss people like George Rademeyer?
Yes.
What a wonderful man.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, a good guy. And he made me promise when I accepted the job that I would stay at least 2 years. I did, 2 years and a day before I went to somewhere else. But now I forgot where I was going with that.
Remember, you will do that.
Oh, yes. Well, yes. When I came down one time to do, I think, a Friday morning something, and we got to laughing.
Oh, God.
Remember the guy on the other side of the glass? I don't remember his name, but I came in and somebody, I don't know if it was me or you.
That's Lee Roberts, who was doing the production. Yeah. He was the tech on the show.
Right. Yeah.
We started to laugh.
Yeah.
And we just lost it. I mean, we just couldn't. It's radio.
Yeah.
But, you just turn down your microphone and try to get your composure, and we didn't for a long time. And Lee thought it was funny, too.
Yeah.
And he was a big guy, as you recall.
Yes,
and he fell off his chair and thumped the ground, and that was funny, too. Yeah. Everything was funny.
I think we were, about 2 minutes, 3 minutes before you could gain enough composure to not have just
probably
laughter.
Felt like that, but actually it was only about 45 seconds. Yeah. But still, it was too long. You know? And then everybody, of course, listening, went, what the heck happened?
Exactly.
Tell me what was so funny.
Light up,
because they knew it was. I mean, they knew we were cracking up, but it took us a while.
Well, we've always been so serious.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, thanks for coming in. Continued good luck at Gonzaga and teaching those kids the right direction. Hopefully, maybe you'll invite some of us in from Spokane Talks, because I think we are the future to talk about where things are going and so forth. And thanks for sending us Andy Cook. Okay, Andy.
Checks in the mail, Andy.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that. And thanks for a friendship. 41 and a half years, all right?
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask us a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Thanks for listening.